Hi. We know there's still people coming into our town hall, and so we'll be starting in about another minute or so. Good evening and welcome. I'm Tricia Dellis and I'm the acting superintendent for Carmel Unified School District, and super excited to have you here again with us tonight as we have another town hall meeting in relation to all the interesting things that are going on around us in these times. So with me tonight, we have a lot of people on our actual site principals and site leadership, our district leadership, the same people that were on the town hall last time, as well as Bill Schreier, the ACT president, and Bud Libby, the CSEA president. And so we welcome all of our panelists and our people that are coming to our meeting. The intent of this meeting tonight, like I shared before, is that we changed a little bit and we did a little tweak in our Zoom process, and we got some feedback from people that they felt as though having their comments read was cumbersome and not what they wanted. And so we've listened to you and we've opened up that option in this meeting tonight. So we'll be listening to you real time. You will not be pictured on the screen. We're keeping the screens private, but we will hear your voice. We will try to get as many people on the call or in this next hour and a half as possible. As you can imagine, there's a lot of interest out there and a lot of you want to ask questions. And so I'm going to try to be really brief at the beginning, give an overview, and then have as many people engage with us as possible. If you have any student-specific questions, we would like to stay away from those. We want to be more generalized. And so if you have a student-specific question, reach out to your site principal, give them a call or an email tomorrow. Copy of the complete PowerPoint. I'm only going to give a few slides tonight, but the complete PowerPoint is on our website, and we also attached it to this invitation as well. Hopefully you were able to go through and review. I think it's like 52 slides at this point, something ridiculous like that. So that's what we've got going at this point in time. To actually get your question or your comment on, you have to use the raising your hand tool. And it's going to put you in an order for us. And so as you raise your hand, you'll be queued up and we'll take you in order as you come in. So I wanted to give just a brief overview. If you've been able to look at this PowerPoint presentation, you'll see that it's very sort of heavier on the slides in relationship to a hybrid model. The reason for that is that that's been the big push from the state in the last several weeks. A lot of you have read through SB 98 and you see that the state really wanted us to get as many students on campus as possible. And so we've been spending a lot of time and energy in that realm. And then, you know, Monday happened and everything sort of shifted throughout the state. In addition to Governor Newsom, you know, putting the call out that our numbers are escalating and spiking throughout the state. Monterey County is also on the watch list and we've been asked to back off on some of those things. That doesn't include schools, I know that, but it is a factor in our community as far as how safe we can keep our staff and our students at this particular point in time. It's just fluid and moving. The local testing options through people being able to get tests is really difficult right now. I myself have been trying to get a test and I haven't been able to get that done. The tracing and the capacity of our local health department, I think you know, it's been difficult. I think they're all working extremely hard. It's nothing on them. It's just that this is just a unprecedented time for everybody. So we're also keeping track of that process and what's happening in the community as far as testing goes. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and have us go into our quick slideshow, and then we're going to get straight to you because we want to hear from you tonight. We know you have a lot of questions and you have a lot of concerns, and so that's mainly what the meeting is for. So we are going to shift now, and this is our proposed reopening plan, and we like to say learning safely together. Next slide. I have a few ground rules I'd like to share just as we go into the meeting as well. We want to assume best intentions of each other and our community. We want to show mutual respect. You have 1 minute for your statement or your question, and there's a maximum of 1 per participant. Any inappropriate or disparaging comments will result in you being muted. So please, let's keep it clean and fun and nice and positive out there. Next slide. Some of the things that we have been considering as you go through the slideshow, you'll see is health and safety. And we talk about that as far as arrivals and departures to the campus, the actual classroom settings and how we will have desks 6 feet apart, the face covering issue with the masks, and then obviously the hand washing and just sanitary issues. We also are talking about the monitoring and responses. And again, we have to wait for the health department to actually call us to confirm any positive cases. We don't do that confirmation, obviously. We envision that if we have a staff or student who is exhibiting any sort of symptoms, then we would refer them to their medical people. And we've said we would keep them out 14 days. However, we will be making contact with the health department in that situation and asking for their guidance and direction. They've assured us that they're ready to do that. So next slide. Scenario number 1, oops, next slide. Scenario number 1 is what we all know to do, right? This is what we do every year. We're really good at it, and it's called full return, and it's our preferred outcome. I obviously don't see that happening in the current situation in Monterey County, but it is one of our options as we look forward to the 2021 school year. Next slide. Scenario number 2 is this hybrid model that we've been talking about. And if you go through the slideshow or the PowerPoint, you can see that we have broken down groups into A and B days. And on their off day, they would be distance learning. And so it's called a hybrid because they are in class part of the time and they're distance learning part of the time. And we can go into more detail as we move through this, this program tonight. Next slide. Connected to scenario 2 is scenario 3, because there are going to be people that do not want to bring their children back because of medical issues, or just because they're just not interested in having their child go to school under these conditions right now. And so we do have, and our plan, if we go to hybrid, would be that there would be an option for distance learning. So parents would have a decision to make between whether or not they would have their child on campus or they were distance learning in that scenario. Next slide. Scenario 4 is what you see going on throughout the state currently. You have districts all over California that are opting and boards are approving straight distance learning as they start the school year. A lot of that obviously is around the safety issues and concerns right now. And so distance learning would be everybody in the district would be going possibly to the distance learning model under scenario 4. Next slide. I'm just going to go through these quickly. We consider childcare, and we are going to be providing childcare for our teachers so that they are able to be teaching in distance or on campuses, however it looks. We are going to provide childcare for our teaching staff. Next slide. Wellness is an issue for all of us. I know I'm probably looking a little haggard myself right now. It's difficult to keep those self-care activities happening. So I would just encourage all of us to try to do that. And we have some plans for our students as well. Next slide. And staff, I should say. Transportation issues with the buses we talked about last time. Next slide. Student supports. There are certain students throughout our community who don't have access to internet. and they may have particular special issues that we need to deal with. And so we were looking at, in a hybrid model, being able to bring some students onto campus in that scenario, and then even possibly in the distance learning model, depending on the situation that presents with those students. Next slide. Or is that my last slide? Okay, I'm going to go with that's my last slide. And so right now I'm going to open up to questions and concerns from the community. You could see I only used 11 minutes of our hour and a half together because I want to make sure we get to as many of you as possible. With that, I've been very brief, and I know we haven't gone into as much detail, but I'm sure you're going to have questions about that we will try to answer. So who is our first person? I'm hearing Kevin or Karen Loveday.
Oh, sorry. The criteria to have only remote schooling earlier in the last school year, we now have over 1,000 more cases. And yet, instead of going to remote schooling, we are looking to return to in-school teaching where PE lessons are unmasked. And I wondered how you mitigated those circumstances.
So I believe your question is, so I would say this, the board has not made any decision at this particular point in time about which scenario we're going to go into for the 2021 school year. So July 22nd, next week, is our board meeting, and we'll be going forth and providing a recommendation to the board at that point in time, depending on what we're seeing and what's happening with the numbers. And then we'll be making a choice. So no choices happened at this particular point in time. I hope I'm answering your question. If not, engage back in because you've got 32 more seconds.
Oops, I just cut her off.
Oh, cut her back in.
Let's go to Allison Dutton.
Okay, I'm hearing Allison Dutton.
Hello, yes, thank you. My question is, you've discussed monitoring for COVID symptoms, but how will you be able to distinguish between regular cold and flu symptoms, such as cough, sneezing, and all of that? Will they all be treated as potential COVID?
They will be treated as potential COVID. We are not health professionals on any level, and I want to stress that because I think that's really a huge challenge for us as school employees and educators. We are going by, what our local health people are telling us, as well as we do have a school nurse in our district. And so those particular symptoms will be treated as COVID symptoms. That student or that employee, if they are showing those symptoms, will be immediately put into an isolation area and taken off campus as soon as possible. And then that's when we are supposed to contact the Monterey County Health Department, and they give us guidance as to whether or not we close down a classroom, close down a wing, close down a campus. And so those decisions are made with their input as they are doing the tracing and contacts with what's going on.
Thank you. So is the requirement then as parents that if our child has any type of symptom of illness that we keep them home? As everyone knows, as soon as school starts, everybody has, runny noses and, tends to get sick.
Yes, we would be asking for all the parents to partner with us in this. And if they see any sort of symptoms, that they keep their child home. We will be doing those screenings as students come onto campus. And so we have purchased thermometers, no-touch thermometers, and those types of things to check students as they come onto our campuses. But certainly we would ask parents to keep them home if they're seeing any symptoms. That would really help us out tremendously. And you're right, schools are petri dishes. They are fraught with germs. And in a typical school year, you're going to see regular, you're coming in, you haven't been together for a while, and you're going to see all of those symptoms popping up. That's why it is so concerning right now that we would be bringing people on campuses. And I would share with you that we have 430 employees in our district. and they all don't live here in Carmel. And in fact, most don't. So some are coming from Salinas, some Seaside, Marina, even out of our county, Santa Cruz County and different counties. And so those employees are going to all be coming back together as well. And so while we might not see the numbers here in just this little Carmel bubble, we would be bringing people in from other communities. So that's a concern as well.
Thank you.
Jill Lewis. Jill, are you there?
Hi, yeah, I'm there. Hi.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Sorry, I didn't hear my name there for a second. And I'm managing dinner at the same time for free. Anyway, can you hear me okay now?
Yes.
Okay, I have 30 seconds on my clock already.
Well, 26 now. Ask away or say something, please.
Oh, I think it was like 30 when I got here. Sorry. Hey, yeah, so I was just wondering if you could possibly advocate for our children by thinking about maybe getting together with other superintendents and asking the county to do as much as they can in terms of testing, something like that.
Yes, excellent point. And we have done that. As a weekly, I meet with the county superintendents. And since that is one of our largest concerns, our county superintendent, Deneen Gus, has reached out to the county board of supervisors, and they are working towards more of a comprehensive plan with the county health office. And so I'm hopeful that they are going to be able to get some sort of possible liaison for schools and more testing for schools specific. So great point. We're looking into that. It just hasn't happened at this point in time.
Yeah, I was thinking just like a letter from the superintendents or the schools together that just said to the county, you know, we've had to roll back everything in terms of school. Is there any way you can try a little bit harder to give us more testing sites so our children aren't going to suffer, that sort of thing?
Great idea. I will take
Okay,
it to
great.
the superintendent's group. Thank you, Jill.
I would love it if I could write you an email maybe about some language, maybe about superintendents might want to think about, you know, sending to the representative, to Congress and that sort of thing, just to try to get us more testing.
Awesome. And I'm going to cut you off because we.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Have a good dinner. Okay, who's next? Hillary Lafort, excuse me. I'm looking at a board from across the room. Hillary Lafort, welcome.
I promoted her, but I don't see her there.
We're not seeing you there, Hillary.
Hang on a second, it's not her fault.
It's not your fault.
I promoted her. You see her on your list right now?
Okay, can you hear me now?
There you are. Yes.
I'm so sorry. So my question is about the distance learning option. I think on slide 28, it mentions an online program, accredited online program. Could you say a little more about what that might be? Would that be MPC for high schoolers or possibly UC Scout or something different?
I'm going to hand that over to Blaze or John. I need somebody to engage on that one.
Yeah, I'll jump in first and John can follow if he'd like. We're looking into which programs we could use. MPC could be used for some coursework. It would not be our main program. And it would not, at this point, it wouldn't be the UC Scout program either. We currently work with one provider, Edmentum, and there's some others out there with our credit recovery programs that we use to have classes that are accredited, including AP courses and what have you. And so we're going to look at how we will offer that to kids who can't return when we can return. If we're in a full distance model, then class would go on as normal. It would only really be in a distance option by choice if we were in a hybrid model back, and then we'd have to look at what courses we could actually offer and the staffing. So right now, since we don't have the numbers of how many students we're talking about and which staff members, we would rely heavily on more of a independent study type of a program. And John, you want to add to that?
No, you covered that one. That's good.
Thanks, Hillary.
Okay,
Hope
thank
that
you.
answers that.
Yeah, that's helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Okay, Scott Hirschfield. Are you there, Scott?
Not yet.
Not yet. I'm hearing not yet.
There he is. He just needs to unmute.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Scott.
Great, thanks so much for taking my question. I am wondering, given the fact that the virus spread seems to be much less when people are outside versus inside, if there's been any consideration of actually holding classes outside, at all levels, where the actual classrooms would be outside, where students at middle school and high school or even elementary would, first hour of the day, bring the desks out. They would set up, their outside classrooms for their teachers, and last period of the day, kids would bring class chairs and things back in. Obviously, I would assume there'd be some classes where that would be a challenge. Some science labs in particular come to mind. But in general, having a whiteboard and kids sitting outside, seems we have plenty of space. And just wondering if that's been thought so kids wouldn't be inside at all throughout the day. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Yes, actually, on one of the days in which we were sitting talking about this for probably 6 hours, one of our principals suggested we just chop a bunch of tree stumps and put them on the field 6 feet apart and put out whiteboards. So I'm being funny, but really, yes, we have talked about the outside option. We've talked about the tents and that sort of thing as well. We're just trying to figure out, it would be in a hybrid model that we would be doing that. And so I am positive if we're in a hybrid model, teachers would be looking to use the outdoor spaces as much as possible. And you're right, we have a lot of it. So yes, it's been talked about. And if anyone else on the panel wants to speak to that, they can.
Yeah, I'll jump in real quick on that one. That was me with the tree stumps, by the way, Scott. Thanks for the question. Obviously, like the middle school is really well set up to do outdoor classes. The problem is we can still only bring on 300 kids at a time in the hybrid model, but definitely we'd be making great use of the spaces that we have. Jen and I walked our campus and measured out all kinds of different outdoor spaces, including the Habitat Amphitheater, even looked at the softball areas with the concrete, I don't even call them, just the giant concrete benches to hold outdoor classes. So obviously, weather permitting, we would be outside frequently, but again, that assumes that we can get back on campus and have half of our kids on site. So it's definitely been talked about, thought about, and it's a great idea.
Okay, our next speaker is Ryan Flagg.
Yeah, hi. Speaking particularly about the Carmel Middle School hybrid option, I'm wondering why it's alternating days, even alternating Mondays, Tuesdays, every day of the week. It's kind of cumbersome, it seems. I'm wondering if it was thought of why, I'm sure it was, but why we're not considering whole weeks, on and alternating by week, even not necessarily Monday through Friday, but say, Thursday through Tuesday. And I think that would help with cleaning between cohorts. That's it.
I'm going to let I'll let Dan and or the elementary school speak to the alternate schedule.
So we examined a number of options for the hybrid model, took the options to our teaching staff and kind of weighed the pros and cons of the various situations. Ultimately, one of the things that we were looking at is, trying to accommodate families so that kids are not stuck at home for long durations of time. So there was some concerns about multiple days on site or a week at a time, because then, you go for a week off. And we just felt like getting kids back onto campus pretty regularly would help establish that routine for kids. And there's a variety of other reasons I'll let some other folks chime in on. But we ultimately landed on the AB, A, and then the next week BA, BA, B schedule. just in terms of providing equity and being able to move curriculum along in a consistent manner throughout the week, rather than trying to have kids engage online and then catch them up on their days there. So there was a lot that went into that, a lot of thinking that went into that. And ultimately we felt like as a district, it was probably our best bet in terms of continuing education on a consistent basis. So anybody else wants to chime in, I will be quiet now. Thanks for the question.
Yeah, I can chime in really quickly. I think one of the other issues, and part of what Dan said, as we were looking at the continuity of instruction and taking let's say a middle schooler in mathematics, and the teacher's trying to move the lessons forward, yet the kid is a week without really being in the classroom and having that check for understanding, and that formative assessment is taking place, and then coming back, and they could be fully lost in a week in math if you're not there, even a couple of days a week. It can be hard. So it was really about trying to maintain continuity of instruction and having kids come back and get feedback more often than less often. But it was considered, definitely.
Thank you.
Okay, our next speaker is Jenica Sims.
Oh, hi there. Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, Jenica.
Hi, thank you so much. Just a quick question, trying to understand a little bit more about, I know that you guys are bringing this forward as proposals next week, and trying to understand a little bit more about what that looks like in terms of what criteria you have to make that decision, and when you're going to communicate with the families, I guess, as to which proposal you proposed as option number one, and then the outcome of that, if you don't mind discussing, please.
No, great. That's a great question. So we will bring forward, and we're probably going to tweak this particular PowerPoint because, again, things are moving every day and shifting. So when we go to the board next week, we will be making a recommendation. And again, we haven't landed on the exact recommendation yet. We've got these options, and we're taking all of the information in daily. And so we will recommend one of these scenarios to the board, and then the board will have discussion and questions and go, have a conversation about what should be done. And then they will either approve what our recommendation is, or they will tell us, no, we don't agree with that recommendation. We would like you to go back and change this, or we're going to actually land on this other scenario. We think this is the way it needs to go. And they will do some sort of an action during that board meeting. At that point in time, if we have an approval and they've approved one of the scenarios, then we would obviously be communicating right after that to let everybody know what the final scenario is that we go into the school year with. We're not I know it feels, and we're right up to the deadline here, but everyone around the state really looks like they're landing and this week. And in fact, people who have taken plans to their board last week and had approval, some of those people are having to go back and change because of the conditions. So again, it's a moving target, and we are trying to get a direction for all of us as soon as possible. Great question. Hopefully I answered it.
You did. You guys are working so hard to get this done, and just wanted to say thank you as well. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, our next speaker is Josh Madfis.
Hi, good evening. I noticed in the option 4 of the remote learning that it said that if parents wanted to request remote learning for children, it would be for kids who have some sort of physical vulnerability. And I would just request that when you have the conversation with the board, that you also consider children that may live with caregivers that have some vulnerability, either immunocompromised or living with elderly parents. That's all.
Excellent point, Josh. We are very mindful of the fact that once your students or your children come back into our schools, that they are going to be exposed to different things that they will be bringing back to households. And so there is the option, and what we would like to do in our district is to give families the option of the remote learning and not to have their children come on campus. The legislation that came through talks a lot about the medical piece. However, they're not requiring us to ask you for a doctor's note or anything like that. I think we have to be just, a bit flexible under the circumstances, knowing that some people are scared, some people are concerned, some people have different circumstances that need to be obviously mitigated. And so if a distance remote learning option is better for them, then they should be able to choose it.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Our next speaker is Jana Costa. We're almost there, looks like, Jana.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, there you are.
Oh, good. Okay, so my question has to do with the event that the kids go back to school for any amount of time. And it goes with the protection. As far as teachers, staff, and students go, what kind of protection is the school district offering as far as PPE supplies? If you guys have a steady source of supply, and what kind of training are you going to be doing with the teachers and students to be able to use it safely?
Excellent question. I'll start us off, and then I'm sure there's others that want to jump in, but I would say that we have a relationship with the County Office of Education, and they are providing us right now with face shields as well as face masks. We've also ordered a cloth face mask for every student and staff member on campuses. We have thousands of just the more paper masks because we know that the cloth masks are going to be a challenge as far as keeping them clean and keeping them tracked with younger children. We also are looking at the drapes under the face masks so that teachers can provide a smile, right? They have a shield, the shield in front of them, but instead of having a face mask on their mouth, they will have the opportunity to have a drape so that they are protected in that way. We have gloves, we have different smocks and coverings for their bodies. Teachers, I'm being told, are the ones that are the most vulnerable adults, right? Are the people in the classrooms and just the adults on campus. And so we really want to be especially careful with the adults on campus and keep them protected. Anyone else want to talk about what we're doing out there as far as protection and safety? Plexiglass, I know, so Dan Paul, you may want to speak about that.
Sure. If you go to the school offices now, we've put up sneeze guards at all the offices and points where the staff may interact with the public. We've gone through an inventory at every classroom to make sure every room has a hand sanitizer dispenser. Touchless soap dispensers have been ordered, should be here within the week. We stocked up on sanitizer, soap, sanitizing solution for the custodians. We're fully stocked to start the school year and sanitize on a regular basis.
I think another point, I'm going to jump in real quick, would be that we will obviously teach and reinforce hygiene measures, hand washing techniques, avoiding contact with the nose and mouth, how to use your face coverings. We'll have signage posted. So we'll do a bunch. And obviously when we bring teachers back, they will have some orientations on their sites about going through all of those proper techniques and how they, one, can be safe themselves, and then two, how they help the students follow suit. So we will be working in that area pretty severely for sure.
Okay, hopefully we answered that one for you, Jana.
Yes, you did, and I appreciate all your hard work.
Thank you. Okay, our next speaker is Krista Oistowicz. Hopefully you're there, Krista. Yes, you should be in.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hello. Yes, we can hear you.
Hi. My question is, if the district chooses to go the full remote option, what is that going to look like specifically at the elementary level in regards to curriculum? Is it going to be the same online options? Did the district purchase a more comprehensive curriculum program? I'd just like some more details about what that will look like specifically at the elementary level.
Of course. So I'm going to hand that over to the two elementary principals, and probably Blaze and probably Colin too, maybe to talk to or speak to this.
Sure. This is Jay Martin, principal at Rivers School, and I could start us out. There's been much conversation this summer and extensive training as well for teachers. I want to say dozens and dozens and dozens of teachers taking advantage of training that the district has offered on, for example, the common platform that we'll be using with Google Classroom, which will be an excellent resource because within this platform, we're going to have structured daily and weekly schedules for both academics and also our specialist programs. And in addition to that, we'll also be providing, well, we have provided and will continue to provide training in some of the online resources, academic resources that will be embedded into those daily and weekly schedules. We will have daily class check-ins, for example, in morning meetings, using the morning meeting as an example via Zoom. Our teachers have also been working hard this summer in developing instructional videos to go along with content as well. I think you can see that one thing I know that we were doing in many classrooms is offering daily small group tutorial sessions with support staff and teachers, so that will continue as well. But I think what is going to be a welcome change as well as we have honed our skills and grown and continue to grow professionally in learning how best to support remote learning. That one of our goals is that we also want to provide more consistent feedback to students on their performance and their progress. So I know that teachers are anxious to do that. We understand that that's a growth area for us as well. So I think that it is going to look much different than it did in the spring. And I have an awful lot of confidence that we're going to roll out will be high quality.
I think this is Ryan, principal at Tular. I think one of the big differences you'll see too is just the amount of instruction that the elementary teachers will be providing students at home increasing. I know that was one thing that we heard loud and clear from parents, and we know from our own reflections back in the spring. A lot of it was supporting students as students did their work, but not as much instruction. We know that that has to change moving forward, and we have to start providing a lot of instruction to our students, as Mr. Martin pointed out, through instructional videos, through daily small group tutorial sessions. And the other thing we know is we've got to support you parents at home as well. And so making sure the resources are at your fingertips easily, and making sure that you've got the support that you need to know the content as your students have questions at times maybe where if you're working on something late at night or something like that. So we know you've got to support you parents at home too. And I'll let Colin talk about the different online platforms if you want to jump in, Colin.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think we did a lot of training as Jay and Ryan had said, and in terms of the quality of curriculum, I think we've got a good bank of existing online curriculum tools. And then what's happened over the summer is our teachers have been creating whole structured distance learning lessons, guided, multi-week writing exercises with all kinds of checks for understanding and formative assessment that are kind of being built right now. And then those pieces of curriculum are going to be shared across grade levels. And and I think that's a really, big enhancement to the program that we did not have in spring. I think you're also going to see, as Ryan said and Jay said, much more feedback. You're going to see that feedback loop be there, which in some cases, with paper packets was not really the focus. this is going to be a much tighter feedback loop. So students and parent and teachers will be in constant communication about their work. So I think I also have seen, a lot more hopeful signs that we'll have a quality online learning program this fall.
And I'm going to add for Cooper, I'm Elisa DeConi, the principal at Captain Cooper. We are also, in addition to using Google Classroom and Zoom and all the programs we have on ClassLink for the students, we'll use hotspots to help get internet to families. It still will be a challenge for some. So we're going to pilot some devices that have content on them already for language arts and math for our younger students. So they will not need internet for those devices.
Okay, anyone else from the panel want to speak to that issue? Or, and Elisa, I'm sorry I didn't mention your name.
That's okay.
Obviously, we need to hear your voice as well.
And we also have the teachers dropping off materials, picking up materials at the meal delivery sites. And so a lot of our materials are pencil paper, books, workbooks, and our staff, teachers and assistants, and support staff contact students via phone also.
I'd like to say something about what's going on. The teachers across the district from all sites are working together collaboratively. Our association has an internal Slack. We set up a channel for distance learning resources. Several teachers are participating in a Stanford course this week and next, and solely on online instruction. But the one piece that hasn't been mentioned is that I'm seeing a lot more confidence on the part of the teachers in being able to deliver this instruction. And if we remember what happened in the spring, there wasn't even the opportunity to catch our breath. So I think that's going to make a big difference as well. And I just will chime in on top of Bill there. And I think the ability to collaborate now in this moment is much greater. And we didn't have that ability when everybody just got pushed to their homes, even our teachers. They didn't have that built-in collaboration. And right now they're working together. They're working across sites. They're working across grade levels. And people are digging in. Teachers are digging in right now, really trying to become better and better at this type of teaching. We're going to be sending some teachers to a distance learning, strengthening distance learning at the lower level, K through 2, across the different elementary sites. The principals, we were just emailing about this today and getting some people who are interested in. So we're continuing to try to build capacity around this, and everybody's working really, really hard and doing a great job. So I'm really looking forward to what we put out this year.
Okay, great question. And so we're going to go to our next speaker, who is Mark Angel.
Hi, can you guys all hear me okay?
Yes.
I just want to thank you so much for your tireless efforts to help our children get back on track with their education and their relationships in the schools. So one thing that I think might happen is that we don't know yet, but it's likely there will be a lot of people that are not coming back to school and that are staying online, and or if not everybody. So my question has to do with PE, physical education. And I know that it's difficult to have physical education online, but are the PE teachers going to actually be leading PE classes for the students every morning, or at least every morning during their rotation that they're not at school if it's a blended program, so that the kids actually get a routine every morning and not just a list of things to do? Because I know it would be helpful to have a set time, an attendance roster, and a flexibility, mobility, strength, and balance exercises every day.
Great question. And I'm going to put that out to the principals.
I'll go ahead and take that since Mark is one of my parents. Hi, Mark, how are you? Hopefully well. So yes, we are looking at doing live instruction, a lot more live instruction this year. PE is an interesting one because it does offer us some flexibility within the program. So We are considering right now a program in which kids have some options. So there are some kids that are involved in outside activities that get plenty of physical activity, so we can do an exercise log for them in sort of an independent study format. But we also recognize that there's some tremendous value in kids logging in and working out with their PE teachers. I think Jake Glacier did a great job last spring working to create some creative opportunities with huge classes actually, and became sort of an online star in PE. So we're definitely looking at that model and various other options, including exercise videos that the PE teachers would post, either with them doing the workouts or exercise folks in the profession pushing those out so that kids can exercise on their own. There would probably be a parent component to any independent study element of that, where parents would have to sign off and validate the exercise that was being done. But we're definitely looking at more live instruction across the board, not just in PE. So I hope that answers your question.
Anyone else? Okay, I'm going to go to the next speaker then, and that is Noelle Coetzee.
Hi, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm speaking both as a former teacher and a parent of a first grader at River School. And I'm concerned that even in the hybrid model that kind of assessments are going to be affected by this, and assessment schedules, both of kids that are struggling, like as in an SST sort of situation, as well as assessments in regards to just generally, what the state has mandated and what the government mandates these kids do. I'm concerned that the teacher time is going to be overloaded with just doing assessments, and the parent time at home will become that primary instructional time.
So I'm going to refer that one out to elementary principals, please.
Sure. Noelle, this is Jay Martin, principal at River School. I think that while that makes perfect sense, because we're going to be so committed to understanding where the students are in terms of their current level of performance, given that we haven't had the opportunity to meet with them as much. However, despite that concern, we know that it's instruction that we want to ensure we're better representing, as Dan and as Ryan have previously described in our programs, where we want to be more consistent in providing instruction, be it live or be it through pre-recorded lessons. So I don't think that there's going to be a danger that we're going to engage in over-assessment per se, but there is no doubt that it is going to be of exceptional importance that we do understand where these kids are and meet their needs in terms of their current levels of performance. And that's where, when you mentioned, for example, the student study team, which if we have an at-risk student who is underperforming, it's going to be very, very necessary for us to very proactively monitor all of our students' attendance. And but I don't think that we'll be engaging in over-assessment per se, because of what's been described this evening of in the value of instruction. I hope that answers your question, but please share with me if you feel I've missed it.
Yeah, I don't know if am I still talking here and people can hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Yeah, that does. So in terms of this student study team, I'm sorry, I'm going over, but in terms of the student study team, I have a student that was receiving extra support last year, and I'm concerned that she might get lost in the mix of things as everybody's just kind of focusing on all of this stuff. Are you guys continuing to track those student study teams? Is that still in the plan?
Absolutely. Okay. As a matter of fact, going into next school year, we even had an increase in our, I shouldn't say an increase in our staffing per se, but we even had a lateral move of a teacher to to fulfill the role of an intervention teacher for our regular ed students. I'm not referring right now to special education, but we have a very strong support staff at school. It's interesting you ask that question because I get questions throughout the summer from them about how we are going to organize our program for next year, given that we could be either full remote or we could be in a hybrid model. So there is going to be no rest for the weary in regard to that topic. We're going to be very, very proactive as a support team and very focused on the fact that we don't have the contact that we did previously for students. And that's going to require that we're doubly communicating and focusing on those needs and finding those students, being very proactive. If we find, for example, that a student's not participating in a particular classroom or a particular support. But Noelle, we do want to continue to offer those support programs as well that previously we were conducting, for example, in a pull-out nature at our schools. We're even trying to push those as we did at the end of the school year last year online too, and had some success. There were some bumps along the way, but I think that we're well aware of that need and we're all committed to achieving it.
And then I want to jump in, Jay, real quick. I mean, we're definitely committed to make sure we know where kids are and provide them the supports that they need. And so we'll be doing our typical universal screening of students with quick assessments that then tell us if other kids need a deeper diagnostic, and then give those diagnostics and then design the appropriate interventions for those students. So that will continue. It might look different, not being in a brick and mortar situation, but we were committed to that and serving all students.
I think I really appreciate too, Jay, bringing up the fact that we know that, when we all went to shelter in place back in spring or in March, students were at different spots right there, and just acknowledging that we very much realized that in the time between then and coming back to school, some students will have slipped farther than others. I know that I've heard a lot in the media about the education lost over the time and different predictions there. And so just really appreciate Mr. Martin bringing that up, and Blaze too, and just want to reassure everybody that we know that, and finding where every kid is at when we start the school year is extremely important to every one of us. I know from the teacher perspective, that was one of the massive concerns that they had. One of their top concerns was students, student progress, and where they would be coming back when we started school again. And so, I feel confident that we've got structures in place to make sure that students don't slip through those cracks, and we've got the extra support that we can offer. And one thing we've already been thinking about is how to weave those into those weekly and daily schedules that we mentioned earlier that will happen for elementary kids.
I apologize. I was just talking and I was saying a lot of really smart things, but I was muted. So let me try that again. We are doing a time check-in right now with you. We have 41 people who are raised hand in the queue in the order that you raised your hand. We have less than 40 minutes left. So most likely we're not going to get to everyone, but hopefully you've heard your answer along the way. I'm just going to remind everybody to be as brief as possible so we can get as many people in as possible. The next person is Stephen Sadlin.
Hi, Tricia. Thanks for taking my question. So I can imagine a scenario where we start the school year with a full distance learning model, but then the opportunity presents itself for us to go with something less restrictive. I can also imagine a scenario where we start with, say, the hybrid model, but then are forced to go with full distance learning. So my question is, once the school board makes the decision on how we're going to start the school year, what is the criteria, whether it's event-based or time-based, that will trigger a review or reevaluation of the decision? Thanks.
That's an excellent question. And that's the one that we grapple with, because we as educators are really struggling with the fact that this is a health issue and a health department or health crisis, if you will. And the fact that we don't have as much guidance as far as what is acceptable in the community is a frustration. So I would say that my general knowledge of this is that 14 days, if you're not seeing your numbers going down with, consistently going down over this 14-day period, then you're going up, right? And you're going in the opposite direction as to what we need to be doing. So that's really what we're looking at. We're looking at how much the virus is manifesting itself in our area, as well as the testing capabilities, which are not high in our county right now, and the tracing and the capacity of the local health department to help us in that process. So our numbers and our criteria, I would love to get a little bit more solid as we move forward, because you're right. I believe when we start and the board makes a decision next week, it's fluid again, right? And so we're going to have to make regular check-in points in which we look at the data and we determine whether or not we can pivot to a less restricted model possibly, or more restricted model, depending on what the data says. So yes, that's what everyone throughout the state is grappling with at this point. Many districts are feeling quite frustrated that there isn't a more comprehensive statewide vision about this issue, and that it's sort of going downhill through the systems, and people are not necessarily taking a statewide stance. I'm hoping that changes. I hear that it might in the coming days, because I think that the governor and CDE and different people are hearing that we're sort of being put in a really precarious situation out here right now, especially when you have the president and the people engaging on such a loud platform saying all students should be back in the classroom. It sort of puts us in a really weird sort of situation. We're not politicians, we're not health people, we're educators, and we struggle with this decision. Excuse me, losing my voice. Okay, we're gonna go to the next person, who is Jordan Champagne.
Hello.
Hi,
Hello.
Jordan. Hi.
Hi. Thank you so much for taking the time. So I've just been hearing a lot of talk from parents wanting to, kind of go back to normal. And I'm just wondering if there's any kind of communication that you're going to give and share with parents and students that this school year is going to be a very different school year, unlike any we've ever seen. And I'm also wondering if there's any thoughts of taking advantage of this unprecedented time, altering the curriculum and the expectations to really harness the specialness of this year, because it's a really unique opportunity for the curriculum to be altered, to really experience what's going on, rather than just trying to turn back to normal, because it's very obvious to me there's not going to be normal, but a lot of parents I'm hearing are wishing for that.
Very, very excellent points. And I'm going to open that up to the panel, because I have a lot of shaking heads and like smiles. And so the opportunity piece is something that we've been talking a lot about. So chime in, people.
Jordan, I love the comment. I think that's got to be our mentality going into it. I know if you look at a lot of education research, one of the first things they point to is narrowing down the scope of what's really important that we teach. And this does really give us that opportunity. And I think in all aspects, looking at this, not just, we're going to mourn, it's going to be hard. But I think, like you pointed out, looking at it too of, okay, what opportunities does this give us? And, be worried about what we can't do. Well, what can we do? And what if we can do it better than we've done it before? How do we, there's a possibility there. And I think that needs to be the way that we go into this year, looking at it through that lens, not be rosy colored or rose colored glasses maybe, but what are those opportunities? So I just Yeah, thanks for saying that, Jordan.
Yeah, I'll step in and say something. Jordan, many of my colleagues are like-minded with you. This is an opportunity to grow and look at things in a different way. So looking for the silver lining, and hopefully some really good things will come out of this. So thank you.
Okay, next question is from Annie Liu. We're looking for Annie Liu.
Hello, can you hear me?
There you are. Hi, Annie.
Hi, thank you. Thank you so much for all the work you've done. We really appreciate. My questions are regarding the distance learning options. I believe I heard you mention that that option is based on the family's choice. It's not only limited to the what the slide listed, like SB 98, those two circumstances. Please correct if I'm not right for that. And the second question is, so other than the possibility of distance learning only, does it always, regardless what model the school might have for the reopen, does it always have a possibility for the family to choose for the distance learning?
Yes, great question. The distance learning option is going to be available to all the families because we know that there are students with medical issues that need to be accommodated, but also that there are just families that don't want their child to go back into either a hybrid part-time or even a full-time situation. So during the COVID situation, we want to be able to provide an alternative for families who want to keep their child home in that situation. So yes, you're hearing us correctly. Thank you.
Okay, great.
Yeah, Annie, I think did I not answer your question?
Yes, you did. Can I ask something more?
You're out of your minute. Sorry.
Okay. Thank you.
Call me tomorrow.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Our next person is Ruby Dominguez. Ruby. Ruby Dominguez. Okay, I'm going to the next person, Natalie Lott.
Hi, I'm sorry. I thought I put my hand down, but I was just asking, and my question was kind of already answered. I was asking if there is a hybrid model, how will the mask requirement be enforced? If kids show up without a mask, will they be given a mask? You already kind of went over this with the PPE, but and then also, would they be required to go home if they refuse to put a mask on?
Great question. Yes, we will be following the governor's orders on masks in California, which would be any child over 2 years old would be required to wear a mask on campus all day. And we will have extra masks. We understand that's going to be a challenge, most likely with the elementary age students who, won't have as much ability to work with those things. But if a student absolutely refuses, that goes into more of a disciplinary issue, and it would be dealt with. Most definitely, we have to keep everyone safe, and so the masks have to be on. And we'll try to work with kids. I mean, this is really tough. I mean, I find it excruciating to wear one. I can't imagine being, 10 years old, trying to wear a mask. So we will do it in a compassionate fashion, but yes, we want masks on at all times. Thank you for your question.
Thank you.
Okay, our next person is Shelly Franklin.
What? I put my hand down. I didn't know it was still on.
Shelly Franklin?
Hi, this is.
Oops, my fault.
Oop, we're having technical difficulties. Hold on, Shelly.
Hi, this is Shelly. Can you hear me?
I thought I put my hand down.
Hi.
I wasn't expecting that.
Okay, this is Shelly. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Shelly. Sorry, it sounds like
Okay.
someone else is bleeding through.
So I heard you answer Jenica's question and Stephen's question, and this is similar. I still haven't heard precisely what criteria and community data points is the CUSD board using this month to decide between the proposed models. How is that decision exactly being made?
Right, I would say that what we're following, and again, this is not my wheelhouse. I'm trying to follow the latest information that's being given to us from the health department and different agencies. But what we're looking at is that 14-day window. If we don't have numbers going down consistently for 14 days, then they're going up. And right now, that's what we're seeing in our community. The numbers are going up. As far as like different points that they're hitting, we don't have that kind of criteria laid out, nor has it been provided to us from the experts out there in the field. And that is one of the things that every district in the state is struggling with, because we, again, are not the experts in the different, they go through all kinds of different, they look at hospital capability, they look at the homeless population and where they can be housed. They're looking at so many different pieces and parts in their data that really what we're looking is a decline in cases. So that's what I have at this moment in time. I hope I have a better answer as time goes on. Okay, our next person is Lorraine. I can't read it because I'm blind. Gifter? No, Kivitek. Lorraine Kivitek. And we could be pronouncing it incorrectly.
Is that better?
Yes. Hi, Lorraine. Welcome.
Thank you so much for taking my question and for doing this evening's event. I would like to know what the protocol is in the event there is a case of COVID-19. Of course, we don't anticipate or expect that, but should we resume on-site learning? Since 40% of people that are infected are asymptomatic, it's certainly possible. So what would be the protocol if you do have an event wherein a student has COVID-19? Thank you.
Yes, excellent question. What the superintendents in Monterey County have been told is if we have a positive COVID diagnosis on our campuses, we will be hearing that directly from the Monterey County Health Department. They are the ones that will confirm to us directly if there is a positive COVID. And in that situation, then they would be directing us as to how we go forward. And that could be that student's out, that particular classroom cohort is out, the wing is out, the school is out. It could be that they've been on a bus, and we have different students who have been exposed as well. So the health department is supposed to help us trace those particular things. And that's one of the things that is, I guess, concerning, because how long is that process going to take? How long will it take them to get us that information and for us to be able to be proactive as to how we are dealing with that particular situation?
Thank you.
Thank you, Lorraine. Okay, our next person is Christina, and I can't read it because it's too far away. Bengal? Yeah, Beigel? Christina Beigel. B-E-I-G-E-L. It looks like her hand may have been put down, so I'm going to go to the next person, which is Megan Eicher.
Hi there. Thank you guys so much for doing this. I had a couple questions about, I noticed on the hybrid model, it was listed that possibly at the high school level, not all courses may be offered. So in that vein, is the school going to consider expanding dual enrollment or offer flexibility around that with whatever distance learning platform they're engaging in, for students that need more accelerated rigor for engagement and learning, how that's going to be addressed?
Handing that off to Principal Lyons.
Hi, good evening. So the reasoning we wrote that down was one of the challenges we're facing in the hybrid model at the high school is the high school schedule is somewhat unique as a schedule builds because course selection is so independent. A fourth grade class is a fourth grade class is a fourth grade class. They have some interchangeability. A student wishing to take AP environmental science, that is not interchangeable with chemistry or biology. So when we said that some courses may not be available, it's based on the size of what we can put in a room. Right now, the capacity for most of our classes fits somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 students in the hybrid model. So the concern initially was to say that that room may be full, and therefore we might not be able to offer that course to that student at that period that they needed in their schedule, which is not any different than a normal scheduling experience. The larger conversation, and kind of touch on the question that I think a lot of folks have asked offline, is our relationship with MPC as it relates to dual enrollment. We have begun this last year having a more formalized relationship with dual enrollment through our US history and our sports med program. And we are obviously still looking at expanding that. The school historically has not just allowed students to take MPC courses to replace existing high school courses because they don't always match up from a curriculum standpoint. But if a student is looking to enhance their coursework by taking courses that we don't offer because they've completed a course of study, for example, a student's gone all the way through Calculus BC and wants to move on to the next level of calculus, that's an option for a student. But in order for a student's diploma to qualify, the courses have to be accredited at our level. So as of right now, we are not expanding our relationship with MPC. I think MPC is still trying to make a determination on what their version of model is going to be and how they're going to address some of those things. And I can say with a lot of experience that college level online independent study courses are a completely different beast than maybe even what our students have experienced taking regular MPC courses. So I've been counseling a lot of students to not use that as a benchmark to say, well, I had success in MPC courses when I went there a year ago, I will have success right away because it's an online course. It's going to be a different creature. So at this time, we are still taking a very limited view of our expansion of our relationship with MPC and really putting our energy in making sure that we can offer as many of the options for students as possible. But as with any schedule, there are times when the schedule just doesn't work and a student can't take that class at that period it's offered, but it's only enhanced by the fact that in the hybrid, we're capped at we have a much harder cap in terms of the number of kids we can put in a classroom.
Thank you. And I just on that, I guess I was asking, in addition to MPC, are you considering other options like UC Scout or the whatever distance learning in terms of adding the option if they can take a course?
Again, the first criteria for us is, are they WASC accredited? Is it a WASC accredited organization? There are a lot of fly-by-night online institutions out there that are presenting themselves as college level, but they're not always. And then whether it's through Edgenuity or another distance program to bring things on board to enhance the overall course offerings and the course programs, to take advantage of, I think as Ryan said earlier, this opportunity to rethink how we look at our course sequencing and our education. There might be some opportunities to offer some courses through those programs to enhance our overall coursework based on what our teachers are capable of overseeing. But our biggest criteria is making sure that a student takes a class that will advance them to graduate from high school and will be A through G and not take a class just that doesn't end up having any value to them in their overall pursuit of what their next stop is.
Okay, our next speaker is Leonard Hopke.
Hi, I've got two questions. The first one you don't have to answer, and that is, how is the district going to screen for and detect students who have COVID that are asymptomatic or pre-symptomatic? The question that I'm hoping you can answer is, if we are on a hybrid model and we choose option 3 to have our child study remotely, will we have the flexibility to hop back into the hybrid on-site option?
Sorry, I was getting a little bit of crosstalk, but I think your question is whether or not we're going to be able to go back and forth between scenarios. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Well, not necessarily back and forth, but at least if we start out with option 3 and then the number of cases in the community is dropping off to the point where we feel comfortable with our son going back to the hybrid scenario, will we have that flexibility?
I think it will depend on the level of the student. So if it's an elementary level or middle school level, for the most part, yes, you'd be able to come back. We haven't set a limitation. I think if we were in a more independent study type high school course, you would need to finish that course. If we were doing an online program, that's where you're getting your credit for that course, at least for a semester. So you would have to complete that before you could jump back into that course, because there was no way to really marry that course back unless we are offering it with one of our teachers who's actually doing it remotely. Say they're a person who's actually out as well, and we're able to have them offer the course, then probably possible to jump back in. So I think it would just depend on the level.
Okay, next person is Michelle Wooden. Michelle.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes, there you are.
Perfect. I appreciate you taking the time to have this forum this evening. And I was just reviewing the hybrid model for the high school. I understand that it may be just a couple of days on campus. Is there an option that would allow for an all distance learning, even if in the hybrid model that mirrors the same courses a student would take if they were attending in person? The hybrid model, in terms of drop off and pickup, conflicts with many parents' work schedules. And I don't want to force a distance learning with an accredited online course program. If I can help that, I want my daughter to be able to participate in the desired high school courses, even if distance learning. Has that been contemplated?
I think so. Specifically, again, I think to Blaze's point, we get into the question about levels. I think in the AP universe, those courses move at such a pace that a student who is purely in an online universe, if we were living in a hybrid world, is going to struggle maintaining connectivity to the classroom structure. In the CP level course, that may be more attainable. And so I think it's probably going to be based on a student's individual course load. But in order to effectively manage the transition, we will recommend that the high school level, that if a student chooses to be on the distance learning model, that they go to a separate platform for continuity, for consistency, for completion, because it's not the way that the teachers are beginning to structure their world. The on and off is going to be essential in how they develop their classroom. So to have a handful of students who are even in a third universe divides the instruction out even further and makes it even harder to keep the whole class moving in the right direction. So we appreciate that the goal with our hybrid model was to try to preserve as much instructional time as we could with our teachers on site, but still use our Friday as an opportunity to do some of the social emotional check-ins, some of the performing arts aspects that are so essential to the high school experience, and then kind of sanctify or codify the academic side to keep those things, give the teachers as much opportunity as they can to run a flipped classroom model with those students. So I think that it'll really depend on what levels of again, we don't know how many students would opt into. Would there be enough kids to opt into a purely distance AP government class? That if we reach a critical mass of students that are at a number where we could offer a purely online version of that, maybe we would do that as part of our planning. But I think we'd have to see where the critical masses are in different classes.
Okay, the next speaker is Erin Borges, and I would say we have about 10 minutes left. So Erin, you're up next.
Hey, well, I appreciate your time too. Thanks for taking my question. I just wanted to know, with the lag times and lack of testing, if a mom suspects maybe her kid has allergies and doesn't think much of it, might give the kid a fever reducer in the morning, take them to school, they get past, checkpoint because their fever has been mitigated, and they do actually have COVID, maybe symptoms pronounced in 2 days or 3 days, and then it takes a couple days for them to get tested and the results and the communication between the health department. What happens over the course of you tracing that throughout the school for, let's say, a week to now know how far that's spread? How do you even gauge that?
That is the horrific scenario, right? A parent, thinks they have an allergy. They're going to give them something for that. They may show symptoms later on. That's the struggle, right? There are going to be multiple people exposed in that particular scenario. And that's the honest truth. It is very difficult for me as the superintendent to say everyone is going to come on this campus, even if we use all of the guidance that has been given to us to say no one's going to be exposed, no one's going to actually catch this virus. That is the angst and the anxiety that we're all living with right now. That's why we're not sleeping. We're laying here, thinking, what happens if one of our staff members or one of our children or one of their parents catches this and is sick or in the hospital or, heaven forbid, dies? I mean, this is what we're talking about. That's how high the stakes are right now. It's unbelievable that we are sitting in this situation, and none of us could have, take us 6 months ago. And if you would have laid this scenario, laid this out, we would never have considered that this could be a possibility. So that is my honest answer to you. If we bring people back on campuses, there is no guarantee that we are not going to expose people. Okay, next person, Allison Dutton.
Yeah, because I wanted her to say.
Good job. What a nice way to politically say.
Hi, yes, I have a question related to childcare and how you're going to be placing students in groups A and B. Is there going to be any consideration for after-school care either at T-Rex or River Rec and placement of kids in the same cohort to minimize exposure? And I'm also wondering if those after-school programs are going to have any coverage on the at-home days.
Excellent question. I'm going to hand it over to Laura Dunn, our preschool, after-school care queen.
Hi, officially child development programs, but I'll
Oh,
go.
there you go.
I wasn't clear on the very first part of that question. Can you say it again, please?
Well, for example, if there are students in A through, I think it was L in group A, and will students in T-Rex try to be grouped in that same A group? Or will there potentially be families that are moved based on their alphabet last name due to after school care or other childcare arrangements?
Okay, so you're talking about like in the hybrid model for before and after school care. I would be very conscientious about working with Ryan and Jay to make sure that those groups are grouped as closely as possible as to what they are in their classrooms. So that if these 6 kids are in first grade and they're all in the same class, and then they have 2 siblings, those siblings are going to be with those first graders, and I'm going to keep those all together, and they will only be with that group of and that one caregiver, so that I will separate them so that we have 3 different rooms at Tular, but we also have a large play area, so there might be a group that's playing out in the in the outer space, and there's another group playing out on the baseball field, and there's 3 groups in each of the rooms. So that is my goal, is to make sure that those cohorts are as closely aligned with what they're doing during the school day. I hope that answers the question.
We have a 5-minute time check here. We have time for about 2 more questions. Our next person is Mandy Vaughn. Come on in, Mandy. Unmute. Are you there, Mandy? We see you. We can't hear you.
Let's go to Bahar and see if we can catch up with Mandy.
Okay, Mandy, we're going to try to circle back to you, but we're looking at Bahar. Bahar, please join us.
Hi, Tricia. Thanks for taking my question. I was wondering if there's been any consideration about moving the start date of school, and if there's going to be any changes to the academic calendar moving forward.
That's a great question. It's been talked about, but not to a large degree, because we know that we have families who are really pressing to have their students back in a learning modality of some kind. So we haven't looked at pushing it back. We have talked about our breaks and various possibilities of maybe not using the breaks in the same way and those types of things. But as far as pushing the start time out, we haven't done that in a real serious fashion because we just didn't think it would be received very well.
Let Carly last.
Okay.
Mandy, hold up.
Okay. Carly Seaver. Carly Seaver.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, Carly.
Great. Just a quick question, and thank you guys for doing this. I was just wondering, given the fact that the parents have some leeway to choose, what's the registration process going to look like for people who are trying to decide whether or not they want their kid to be, distance entirely based on family members and their health? I'm just wondering, if we are going to be registering in a certain way, or if it's going to be some sort of process where we register and have an option a little bit later. Things are changing basically daily. So I'm wondering, we're supposed to register in a week or two and then not start for a few more weeks. And we've all seen everything change so quickly. What's, the registration going to look like, and how will we have any amount of fluidity with that?
I'm going to have one principal speak to that. Is there one principal out there that can talk about the registration part?
How about me?
Oh, Paul wants to speak to it.
Okay, so here I am. I don't think I have a camera. So we're going to turn on the registration after the board meeting. Once, there's some decisions made, that way we'll know the direction we're heading. It'll make it easier for parents to make some decisions. And I'm sorry, I was busy working with the next people up with the questions. I don't know if I heard your full question.
I'm just wondering, since things are changing so quickly, if we choose to go along with, say, that the school and the board make a decision to do the hybrid model, and we say, great, hybrid model, and then 2 weeks down the line, we become uncomfortable with the idea of having the kid in the hybrid model, how would we go about saying, no, based on our family, we'd like to have our kid be, distance learning, that kind of thing. Will we have the ability to, before school starts, change that? Or, are we registering in a certain way?
We're going to ask people to tell us what their, preferences, and of course we're going to make a decision about. The board will make a decision about what's being offered, and there may be the possibility for a change, early on in the process. But for us to be able to staff things and that sort of thing, we've got to know how many kids we're serving in each program. I mean, right now our principals are trying to put together schedules in 3 or 4 different scenarios. So there is going to be a bit of a balancing act of giving parents some room to make a choice, and we got the feedback. So I hope that got to the point.
Paul, will that happen within the actual normal registration process, or we have a separate process, a separate documentation for those folks who are going to choose that?
I don't know if it will be in the regular process. It seems to me that we're talking about an after the fact decision or a change of decision. That would probably be a separate process.
Yeah, I imagine that would just be a communication made directly to the principal. And in reference to that, there's a similar question asked earlier in the town hall. My only concern, of course, would just be, can we ensure the social distancing in a classroom that is being asked of us? That's really, from my chair, what would be the deciding factor of whether or not we could take a student back. Now, by having students opt out of or opt into full remote, if we were in hybrid, it seems like there would be space, but we do have students who registered during the school year as well, and several of them. So that could impact our ability to take back that student. So as long as we can accommodate the social distancing, I would think that that could be handled in a communication directly with the principal.
Okay, it is 7:30 on the dot, and we were able to get through quite a few people. I apologize for those of you who we didn't get to. I would say that I've had hundreds of emails over the last several weeks, and we're reading all of them. I'm trying to respond to as many as possible, but please know that we're hearing you, not only in this forum, but also as you write your emails into us. So thank you so much for participating this evening. That was pretty enjoyable, I have to say, was a little glitchy at times, but nice to hear your voices and nice to hear your ideas and hear your, answer questions for you. I would just like to close this out with just take care of yourselves, take care of your families, take care of each other. All we have are our relationships. That's the most important thing right now. And so be safe, be healthy, be kind to one another. Thank you.